Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hello, guys. How are you? Good. Great. No, we're excited. We are very excited because it's a castle video. Hever Castle. Let's go, guys. Original link to the video from history at top of the description. My name's Connor if you're new. Nice to meet you, sir or madam. Let's go.
Hever Castle is one of the most remarkable historic houses in Britain. It's got 700 years of turbulent history, marked by glitz and glamour, as well as decline and fall. Today, I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour and show you my favourite bits. Let's go.
Let's do it. Poople? No? Anne Boleyn, uh-oh.
First off, here's a potted history of the place. At the start of the 13th century, this site was home to a timber, motte and bailey castle.
Hold on. But the maze goes right to the center. It's really cool. I used to do corn mazes as a kid around October. Really fun.
At the start
I'm already getting distracted. Go.
First off, here's
Great
a potted
grass.
history of the place. At the start of the 13th century, this site was home to a timber, motte and bailey castle. This would have been quite a basic structure, a timber hall with just a few outbuildings.
But in 1271, during the reign of King Edward I, the design was taken up a notch. Permission was granted to strengthen the house at Hever with a wall of stone and lime, and to crenellate it in the manner of a castle. So, a gatehouse was built to replace the original timber.
Are crenellations just the upper part? You know, the you see these things I have my pointer on, or is it just have a different meaning?
So, a gatehouse was built to replace the original timber hall.
And it was from this gatehouse, which still stands today, that more additions were made in the 14th century. Soon there were crenellated walls with towers on the corners. They added a moat and even a great hall.
It's hard to imagine, but in the 14th century, the exterior walls would have been whitewashed with a mixture of powdered chalk and water, and even decorated in bright, bold colours. This wasn't just to make the castle more imposing, it was also to protect the stone.
Oh.
Across the years, all sorts of people have lived here at Hever Castle. Since the 13th century, it's passed through 37 different owners and 13 families. It was originally the home of William de Hever, who gave the castle its name. And in the 15th century, the Fiennes family lived here, the ancestors of the great explorer Sir Ranulph Fiennes.
Of course,
I've never heard of him. That name doesn't even ring a bell, actually.
most famous of Hever's residents were the Boleyn family, who then spelt their name B-U-L-L-E-N. The castle was bought by Geoffrey Boleyn in 1462, and it was his grandson, Thomas Boleyn, who lived here and raised his 3 children, Mary, Anne and George. And it was Anne Boleyn, the middle child, who became Henry VIII's second wife.
Spoiler alert, the Boleyns' rise to power didn't last long. In fact, it was cut brutally short when Anne and George Boleyn were accused of adultery and incest and executed in 1536. Their father, Thomas Boleyn, was shunned at court and died 2 years later.
With the Boleyns out the picture, Hever Castle came into the possession of King Henry, and in
Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I know there's a good chance it's not. I can't imagine being anyone in society other than the king, I guess, or queen. Or no, clearly you're not safe if you're queen. And just knowing there's someone that can just get rid of you for no reason. How can you ever be calm?
Boleyns out the picture, Hever Castle came into the possession of King Henry, and in 1540 Henry gave it to his 4th wife after he annulled the marriage. This was Anne of Cleves, also known as the Flanders Mare.
Since the Tudor period, Hever passed through the hands of several different families and gradually fell into decline. It may well have fallen into total disrepair had it not been snapped up by the richest man in America, William Waldorf Astor.
Astor threw his immense fortune into refurbishing and reimagining Hever as a grand Tudor fortress, filling it with ornate oak panelling and magnificent Tudor portraits.
Astorf, is that hotels, real estate? What did he get rich from?
Filling it with ornate oak panelling and magnificent Tudor portraits. He created a lavish family home that could indulge his passion for history and impress his VIP guests.
So what we're looking at today is a real hodgepodge of 700 years of tweaks and alterations. Even the moat has caused all sorts of problems in the past. We're on quite low ground here, and as the moat used to join the River Eden, it would spill over the banks and flood the castle's courtyard.
Of course, Astor sorted all of that out in his renovations, and in 1906 he took out the crumbling brick bridge and reinstated this wooden drawbridge, which can still be raised. No doubt useful for any guests who had turned up late.
This gatehouse is home to two of the oldest surviving portcullises in England, one of which can still be operated. And here in the castle...
I was about to say, I wonder if they had laws against drinking and riding horses. But just because you're drunk doesn't mean the horse is drunk, which is awesome. Let's get rid of cars, bring back horses. I know you got to clean up the poop a lot, but it's worth it.
Courtyard, one of which can still be operated. And here in the castle courtyard, you can clearly see the difference between the 13th century gatehouse and the timber-framed Tudor additions. In Anne Boleyn's day, there would have been 4 doorways on each side rather than the 2 we see today. The east wing was where the servants worked and slept.
It's almost too perfect of the timber frame houses. Some of the magic that I like of timber frame houses is that they're not... this does look very nice, I gotta say. Maybe I'm second guessing my opinion. But something that is nice about the half timber houses is that they're not always straight up. Like they have some irregularities in it, you know. This almost looks too professionally done. Does that make sense? Am I going crazy?
In Anne Boleyn's day, there would have been 4 doorways on each side rather than the 2 we see today. The east wing was where the servants worked and slept, and the west wing had the private rooms of the Boleyn family.
So when it came to servants, is that a job you applied for, or were you just... If they needed a servant, where did they go? Were they just like, hey, you're off the street, you are now the servant here? And maybe that was a promotion from doing farm work? Wait a second, this is a good question. How did you become a servant? Now I really want to know.
This is the 13th century gatehouse, the oldest part of the castle. This is where William de Hever would have eaten, slept and entertained his guests, and it was pretty luxurious. It even had a guardrobe, aka a loo, which emptied directly down into the moat. Look out below! Sorry.
It's a pretty gruesome collection in here. There are executioner swords, pieces of armor, and even instruments of torture. And one of the strangest pieces are these scolds' bridles. These were designed to be worn by outspoken women, a bit like myself, who were suspected to be witches, shrews, or scolds. Next, we're heading...
I really want to... Okay. Never mind.
To the inner hall. In the...
What? How did that process go? It's like, oh, she's hysterical. Well, put the mask. Oh, I don't even want to think about that.
Next, we're heading to the inner hall. In the Boleyn's day, this was the kitchen where great feasts were prepared, and Thomas Boleyn even had high ceilings installed to help dissipate the smoke.
Of course, it doesn't look much like a kitchen these days, as much of this panelling and woodwork was installed by William Waldorf Astor, who used this as his grand reception room.
Astor employed 700.
I'd imagine there'd be a lot of soot everywhere if when it was a kitchen, kind of ruining this stuff.
48 men to refurbish the castle.
And reception room.
Astor employed 748 men to refurbish the castle, and he was careful to preserve as much of the original structure as possible, with strict instructions to use historically authentic tools, materials, and techniques where possible.
But my favourite detail in this room is this portrait of Elizabeth de Valois, who was the third wife of Philip II of Spain. Now, it's a beautiful portrait of Elizabeth, but what's most interesting is this pear-shaped pearl hanging in her hair.
This pearl is La Peregrina. It's believed to be one of the most symmetrical natural pearls ever found. It was also owned by Queen Mary I, and it stayed in the hands of royalty, Hollywood royalty that is, when Richard Burton bought it for Elizabeth Taylor.
And the pearl actually returned to Hever Castle.
Elizabeth Taylor, that's a
So
familiar
when
name.
Elizabeth Taylor wore it whilst filming here at the 1969 film Anne of a Thousand Days. Isn't that neat?
The other bit of bling to look out for in this room is this gilt bronze clock on the mantelpiece. This is a replica of what Henry VIII gave Anne Boleyn on the morning of their marriage in 1532.
I know historians talk all about the significance of this representing the time finally coming or time running out, but for me it's far more simple. Just hours before the wedding, Henry gave Anne a clock. I think he's saying, please don't be late. And who can blame him? Caterers are expensive.
The next stop on our tour is the drawing room. Originally used in Tudor time as domestic offices, this had a new lease of life in 1905. For William Waldorf Astor kitted it out with this extravagant Elizabethan-style panelling made from oak and holly.
This is the room where Astor would have schmoozed many of his famous friends. We know that Queen Elizabeth II, Winston Churchill, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
I feel like I'm in a luxury room on the Titanic.
We know that Queen Elizabeth II, Winston Churchill, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle were among his guests. You can picture the scene in here. Astor here with all his pals, a few dukes, a few earls, all drinking champagne, gin and tonics perhaps, and all making lots of hearty jokes. A whale of a time, in fact.
What is this, Downton Abbey? This is good.
They were entertained lavishly, and I'm sure they were impressed by
I
Astor's little
haven't practiced
surprise.
piano in a while.
They were entertained
get back
lavishly,
into it.
and I'm sure they were impressed by Astor's little surprise behind this door. He transformed the medieval turret into his very own drinks cupboard.
Bottoms up.
After a few bottles of champagne, Astor brought his guests into the dining room. In Tudor times, this was the Great Hall, initially opened right up to the roof rafters. The Boleyns would have dined in this.
I would be so happy to just be able to walk around this place. I could very easily spend a whole day, waking hours, walking around this and be very upset when the day is over.
Room, and it was here that they entertained Henry into the dining room. In Tudor times, this was the Great Hall, initially opened right up to the roof rafters. The Boleyns would have dined in this room, and it was here that they entertained Henry VIII and his retinue.
So this is threaded? That's how you make this tapestry? Same as you would a nice rug carpet? That's so awesome. So there is a deer that they're trying to chase to catch, hunting. It jumped in the river. You have the dogs around it.
My favourite thing in this room is this impressive gilt lock. This belongs to Henry VIII. The king was so paranoid about assassination, he always travelled with a locksmith, and it was this lock that was fitted to his bedroom wherever he stayed, and then removed when the royal party moved on. Now, if there's one lesson you...
That's awesome. Oh, spiral cases. Spiral staircases. Unexplained joy I get when I see a spiral spiral staircase. Spiral staircase. I don't know what is wrong with my vocabulary right now. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How much wood could wood? I need to practice my talking before I start a video.
Now, if there's one lesson you must take away from a visit to Hever Castle, it's that you must never run up the stairs, for some of these steps, like this one, are different depths.
This wasn't because it was poorly designed or hurried.
It makes it more difficult for someone that might try to run up them who isn't used to the staircase?
Built. This was, like in many medieval castles, an ingenious safety feature.
The idea was that if you lived here, you would know which steps were the odd ones. But
if you're racing someone chasing you, you can go up super fast and they'll stumble.
Invaders, they would be thrown off balance, trip up, and give the defenders a crucial advantage.
Wow.
The next stop on the tour is my favourite room of the whole...
Did they have body doubles? That'd be smart. Like Padme?
Castle. And
advantage.
The next stop on the tour is my favourite room of the whole castle, Anne Boleyn's bedroom.
Anne Boleyn was probably born in 1501 and she spent her childhood here at Hever Castle, and historians think that this was probably her bedroom.
It seems that Anne was fond of Hever. Even when she was a young woman and courting Henry VIII, Anne would often return here. In fact, 7 of the king's love letters were sent to Anne while she was staying at Hever in 1528.
And here she is, wearing her famous bee pendant. She has a daring French-style hood revealing her dark hair. As a young woman, Anne was considered to be...
Whoa! Wow, too promiscuous.
Intelligent hood revealing her dark hair. As a young woman, Anne was considered to be intelligent and witty, if not traditionally beautiful. The Venetian ambassador described Anne as not one of the handsomest women in the world. She is of middling stature, with a swarthy complexion, long neck, wide mouth, bosom not much raised.
Jesus Christ, chill.
In fact, has nothing but the king's great appetite.
Oh, I'd prefer you just called me ugly than
and her
say
eyes,
all of that.
which are black and beautiful.
Some of Anne's most personal possessions are on display here at Hever Castle. In this room you can see 2 beautifully illuminated prayer books, which were signed and annotated by Anne herself.
These kind of personal prayer books were popular in England from the 13th century until the Reformation. They earned the name the Book of Hours from the short services to the Virgin Mary, which were read at 8 fixed hours during the day, including matins and vespers.
It's incredible to imagine Anne Boleyn walking these corridors. And of course, Henry would have visited on several occasions as they were courting. As Henry would have been given the grandest rooms available, he probably stayed in this room when he came to visit.
That kind of freaked me out at first.
Grandest rooms available, he probably stayed in this room when he came to visit.
Hello, sir.
So, after being lavishly fed and watered by the Boleyn family with a great feast of pies, game, roasted meats, custards and jellies, King Henry would have probably climbed into this bed and snuggled up to sleep, perhaps dreaming of Anne Boleyn or glory in France, and probably snoring quite a lot, I imagine. Hey, that's private. This bed dates from 1540 and it's a tester bed. The term derives from the Latin word testa, meaning head, because these beds were headed by the solid wooden canopy suspended above it. Cozy. Look, I do love green sleeves, but can you play Wonderball?
Next up, we're heading to the staircase gallery, built in around 1506 by
Francis Drake?
Thomas Boleyn.
Complete Jack. No, he was later. Well, it still could be a portrait of him.
Next up, we're heading to the staircase gallery, built in around 1506 by Thomas Boleyn. The gem in this room is this portrait of Mary Queen of Scots in mourning.
This portrait was recently discovered in France and is believed to have come from the studio of François Clouet, a French Renaissance miniaturist and painter. It's thought that Mary's white mourning gowns were because of the recent death of 3 close family members.
This is probably Hever Castle's most famous room, the Long Gallery.
Didn't Queen Victoria popularize black for mourning, or did she popularize the wedding dress? One of the two.
It was built in the 16th century and extends across the entire width of the castle. Here, the Boleyns might have entertained guests, displayed art collections, and even taken exercise.
The panelling in this room dates from the 16th century, but the meringue-like ceiling was another Astor addition. It was made in London and brought to Hever on a steam train. Astor even had the train tracks extended, just so the ceiling could be installed. The most exciting thing about this room, though, are the 18 original portraits on the wall. These tell the epic saga from the Wars of the Roses all the way through to the Reformation, aka a lot of family drama.
Most of what we see at Hever is really the
So many opportunities for secret passages.
work of William Waldorf Astor, and he spent a lot of time on re-landscaping the gardens too.
From these dizzying heights, you can see all the re-landscaping that Astor did in the early 1900s. You can see the maze just next to the castle, and beyond that, the Italian garden.
He had 800 men contracted to excavate the 38-acre lake, and they were instructed in December 1904 to carry on the works regularly and continuously by day and night, except on Sundays when so ordered.
So, there you have it, the magnificent history of Hever
That was
Castle
awesome.
in a nutshell. Thanks for watching.
That was great. There were this is a over 2-hour long video with a lot of different castles here that I haven't seen. I've seen a video on Arundel, I think this exact one with Dan Snow. I've seen Windsor, I think also with Dan Snow. Hedingham Castle, I'm not sure. Lincoln Castle, probably. Anyways, there are a few more on here that I'd like to do some reactions for. For now, though, that's it. Awesome. Would appreciate any comments down below, any answers to any questions I had, any comments at all. Hope everyone's doing well, and hopefully I'll see you next video. Bye, guys.